The restaurant was quiet for a Tuesday evening, with only a few regulars scattered across the tables. The waitress moved from one table to another with practiced ease, her steps light but purposeful. Her uniform was neat, her apron tied just so, but there was a weariness in her eyes that spoke of long hours and hard work. She greeted every customer with a polite smile and a soft voice, the kind of smile that suggested she had learned to hide her struggles and keep them to herself. Behind the counter, she could hear the faint notes of the old piano in the corner. It was chipped in places, and some of the keys stuck, but it had been in the restaurant for as long as anyone could remember. Most customers hardly noticed it, and if they did, they assumed it was just for decoration or background noise. But she could hear something in the music that reminded her of another time. A time when her hands had danced across keys with joy and confidence. When her heart had belonged to music and nothing else, she moved between the tables, taking orders, pouring drinks, and occasionally wiping down a surface. A man at the counter smiled at her, tipping his hat, but she only nodded politely and moved on. She had learned to keep her head down, to work quietly, and to avoid drawing attention. Music had been her secret world, one she rarely let anyone see. It was a world that demanded time, patience, and dedication. All things she had little of now, as she carried a tray filled with drinks to a small table near the window. She noticed the sun beginning to dip below the horizon, casting a warm glow across the room. It reminded her of evenings long ago, when she would sit at the piano in her small apartment, the world outside fading away as she lost herself in melody. Those days felt far away, almost like a dream she could barely touch anymore. Life had its demands, and she had learned to meet them, even if it meant leaving behind the music she loved. A group of teenagers entered the restaurant, laughing and chatting loudly. She greeted them with a practiced smile, asking for their orders and taking care not to let the noise disturb her. She moved through the room with quiet efficiency, her mind partially on her work and partially on the piano. She could feel the music calling to her, a whisper in the back of her mind, reminding her of what she had once been capable of. It was both comforting and painful at the same time. The restaurant owner, a kind but busy man, called out to her from behind the counter. He needed her to check on a delivery that had just arrived. She nodded and made her way to the back, careful not to spill anything on the floor. As she sorted through the boxes, she thought about the life she had chosen and the sacrifices she had made. Music had once been her dream, but now it was a luxury she could not afford. Yet, every time she heard a note from the piano, she felt a spark of that old passion, a reminder that it had not completely left her. A regular customer approached, asking for the usual cup of coffee. She prepared it quickly, adding the right amount of sugar and cream without needing to be told. The man thanked her with a smile, and she returned the gesture though her thoughts were elsewhere. She glanced at the piano again, imagining her fingers on the keys. The way the music had once flowed through her effortlessly. It was a private longing, one she kept hidden from everyone around her. As the evening progressed, more customers came and went. The restaurant filled with the sounds of conversation, clinking dishes, and the occasional laughter. She moved through it all with quiet grace, always attentive, always polite. But beneath the surface, there was a restlessness she could not ignore. The piano in the corner seemed to call to her more insistently now, each note a gentle reminder of a life she had set aside. She remembered the days when she had taken piano lessons, when she had spent hours practicing scales and perfecting pieces. Her parents had supported her as best they could, even if their finances were limited. She had dreams of performing on stage, of sharing her music with the world, but life had its own plans. Responsibilities had pulled her in other directions, and she had put her talent aside, though it had never truly left her. A young couple entered, taking a seat near the piano. She took their order, her hands moving quickly, but her mind still half on the music. She smiled politely as they asked questions about the menu, answering with the same calm and measured voice she had perfected over the years. The piano seemed to hum softly in the background, as if encouraging her to remember who she really was beneath the apron and the duties of the day. She cleared a few tables, moved chairs, and refilled drinks. Each movement was precise and efficient, but there was a subtle grace to the way she handled herself. Customers noticed her calm presence, though they did not know the depth of the story behind it. She was a professional through and through. And yet there was an untapped world inside her, waiting for the right moment to emerge as closing time approached. She began to tidy the tables and sweep the floor. The restaurant was quieter now, the rush of the evening fading into a gentle calm. She paused for a moment by the piano, running her fingers lightly over the keys. The touch brought a flood of memories, each note a connection to a past she could not forget. She hesitated, wondering if it was foolish to indulge in the moment, but she could not resist entirely. Music had always been a part of her. No amount of time or circumstance could erase it. She sighed softly, stepping back from the piano. The restaurant lights cast long shadows across the room, and she could feel the weight of another long night ahead. Yet, in that brief moment, there was also a glimmer of something more. The piano, old and worn, still held a promise, a possibility that life could change in ways she had not imagined. She tucked that thought away as she finished her tasks. Unaware that the quiet evening held a moment that could alter everything, she finished her shift, stacking chairs and wiping down surfaces, her movements almost mechanical after a long day. Her uniform was a little disheveled, and her hair had loosened from the neat style she had worn earlier. She paused by the door, glancing back at the piano one last time before stepping out into the cool night air. The city streets were quiet, and she walked home slowly, her mind wandering through melodies she had not played in years. The music was alive in her, a hidden current that refused to be extinguished, waiting for the right moment to surface again. The next evening, the restaurant was busier than usual. The chatter of customers mixed with the clinking of dishes and the soft hum of the old piano in the corner. She moved gracefully between tables, taking orders and delivering plates. Her mind partially focused on her work and partially on the gentle notes from the piano. There was a rhythm to her movements, a quiet efficiency that only came from years of experience. She greeted familiar faces with polite smiles and nods, but her thoughts were elsewhere. Wandering through memories of music and melodies that had shaped her life, a new customer entered, drawing attention without even trying. He was tall and well-dressed, carrying an air of quiet authority. He looked around the room, not like someone who was just there to eat, but like someone observing every detail. When his eyes fell on her, she felt a sudden unease, as though he could see through her careful composure. She smiled politely and approached his table, ready to take his order. He did not order right away. Instead, he watched the room for a moment and then turned his gaze toward her. "Do you play the piano?" he asked, his voice calm but curious. She blinked, surprised by the question. She hesitated, unsure how to answer. Most people did not know about her talent, and she had learned to keep it hidden. Not really," she said softly, trying to brush off the question. He raised an eyebrow, a small smile playing on his lips. "Not really?" he repeated, his tone gentle but encouraging. She shook her head, unsure if she should say more. The restaurant seemed to notice the sudden tension. A few curious glances turned toward them, as if the question itself had created a momentary suspense. The teenagers at a nearby table whispered to each other, trying to catch her reaction. She felt a flush rise in her cheeks, wishing she could disappear into the background. Music had always been her sanctuary, a world where she could be herself without fear, and now it felt exposed. "I saw the way you look at it," he said, nodding toward the piano. "I think you know more than you let on." She swallowed, feeling the weight of truth pressing against her lips. She had spent years keeping her talent hidden, fearing judgment or disappointment. But the curiosity in his eyes made her pause. He did not seem to judge her. He seemed genuinely interested, almost as if he could sense the story behind the quiet demeanor she carried. Other customers began to murmur softly among themselves, drawn in by the subtle drama of the moment. The young couple near the piano leaned forward slightly, sensing that something unusual was happening. She could feel every eye in the room, and for a moment she panicked. She had not played in public for years, and the idea of performing, even for a single person, felt both thrilling and terrifying. The man leaned slightly forward in his chair, his expression kind and patient. "I promise you won't be embarrassed. Just a few notes, enough to hear your touch. No one is judging you here." She hesitated, her fingers itching as she thought about the piano. The memories of long hours practicing, the sound of music filling a room, and the sense of accomplishment and joy all came rushing back. Her hands twitched almost involuntarily, remembering the motion of keys under her fingertips. The room seemed to hold its breath as she moved toward the piano. Each step felt heavy with anticipation, yet light with a sense of returning to something she had never truly abandoned. She sat down slowly, her hands hovering over the keys. The man watched silently, a faint smile on his face, giving her the space to find her courage. The soft hum of the piano, the gentle murmur of the restaurant, and the subtle weight of expectation created an atmosphere unlike any she had experienced in years. She pressed the first key, and a single note rang out, simple but pure. Her heart leaped at the sound, and she realized how much she had missed this. She took a deep breath and allowed her fingers to move freely, playing a melody that seemed to flow effortlessly from memory. The room fell silent, as if everyone knew to listen. Conversations stopped, dishes were forgotten, and the hum of the piano filled the space. Growing richer and more intricate with each passing measure, the man watched with a sense of wonder. Clearly impressed by her skill, she could feel the attention of the room, but instead of feeling pressure, she felt a strange liberation. Music had always been her voice, and now she was speaking it again, even if only for a brief moment. She played a piece that was both gentle and powerful, her fingers moving with precision and grace. The old piano, worn and imperfect, responded to her touch as if it had been waiting all these years for someone to bring it back to life. As she continued, she felt a warmth spreading through her chest. The years of sacrifice, the hidden talent, the quiet longing, all of it seemed to converge in this single performance. She realized that this was not just a test or a favor. It was a chance to reconnect with herself, to remember what she had been capable of. The notes danced around the room, touching every listener in a way that was both unexpected and profound. The man finally spoke, his voice soft but filled with admiration. "You have extraordinary talent. I can see the years of dedication in every note." She paused, her fingers still hovering above the keys, feeling a mixture of pride and vulnerability. She had never played for anyone who could truly appreciate the depth of her skill, and now she had found someone who could. The other customers, too, looked on with awe. Realizing that they were witnessing something special, she continued to play for a few more minutes, each piece telling a story of longing, struggle, and hidden strength. Her mind drifted back to the days of her youth, to the practice sessions, the small performances, the quiet joy that had once defined her life. The music was no longer just sound. It was emotion, memory, and identity, all wrapped into one. She felt alive in a way she had not in years, and she knew that something had shifted, even if she could not yet name it, when she finally stopped. The room remained silent for a moment, as if no one wanted to break the spell. Then, slowly, applause began to ripple through the space. It started as polite claps, but grew into genuine appreciation. The teenagers looked at each other in disbelief. The couple near the piano exchanged smiles, and the other diners whispered about the talent they had just witnessed. She felt a flush of warmth and embarrassment. Not used to such attention, but secretly thrilled by it. The man smiled at her again, his expression kind and approving. "Thank you for sharing that with us," he said. "You have a gift, and it deserves to be heard." She nodded quietly, feeling a mixture of gratitude and uncertainty. She had not played for attention or recognition. She had played because it was a part of her, something she could not hide any longer. And now, in the most unexpected way, the world seemed to be noticing as she returned to her work. She could feel a subtle change in the atmosphere. Customers looked at her differently, with a newfound respect and curiosity. She moved among the tables with the same quiet grace. There was a spark in her eyes, a hint of something that had been dormant for too long. The piano in the corner seemed to hum with approval, as if acknowledging the moment that had passed and the possibilities that lay ahead. Throughout the rest of the evening, she continued her duties, serving meals and clearing tables. But the memory of the performance lingered. Every time she glanced at the piano, She felt a thrill of anticipation and a quiet hope. The wealthy man remained in the restaurant, quietly observing, his presence a reminder that her talent had finally been seen, and though she did not yet know what would come next, she sensed that her life, even in small ways, had begun to shift toward something new and unexpected. The waitress sat at the piano, her hands hovering over the keys, feeling the smooth surface beneath her fingertips. Her heart beat fast, a mixture of nervousness and excitement coursing through her. She could hear the soft hum of the restaurant around her, but for a moment, everything seemed to fade away. The faces of the customers, the chatter, and even the wealthy man watching from his seat all disappeared into the background. All that remained was the music, the instrument, and the memory of her past. She pressed the first key, a simple note that resonated in the quiet room. It felt familiar, like greeting an old friend after years apart. Encouraged by the sound, she let her fingers move to the next note, and then the next, each one flowing naturally. The melody began to take shape, soft at first, almost hesitant, but gaining confidence with each measure. The room seemed to hold its breath, the customers drawn in by the unexpected beauty of the sound. Her hands moved with skill and grace, each note precise, yet full of emotion. Years of hidden practice and forgotten lessons returned to her instinctively. She remembered the countless hours spent learning scales, practicing pieces, and losing herself in the music. Every emotion she had bottled up over the years seemed to pour into the melody, giving it depth and richness. The piano, though old and imperfect, responded as if it had been waiting for her all along. The wealthy man leaned slightly forward, his eyes fixed on her hands. He could see the years of dedication in every movement, the subtle strength and control that came from long practice. It was clear that this was not casual talent. This was skill honed through discipline, passion, and a love for music that had never faded. The room, once filled with the casual noise of a busy restaurant, had fallen silent. Every ear tuned in, every eye fixed on the unexpected performance. She continued to play, her mind becoming lost in the rhythm and melody. The music seemed to tell a story of its own, of dreams deferred, struggles endured, and a passion that refused to die. Each note carried a piece of her past, her heart, and her soul. The customers were mesmerized, unable to look away, caught in the spell of the music. Some whispered softly, unsure if they should speak, while others simply sat in awe. Their eyes wide with admiration, her confidence grew with each passing moment. The hesitation that had gripped her earlier melted away, replaced by a sense of freedom and joy. She was no longer just a waitress in a busy restaurant. She was a musician, a storyteller, a person reclaiming a piece of herself that had been hidden for too long. The piano seemed to breathe under her hands, the notes flowing effortlessly, filling the room with a sound that was both powerful and tender as she played. She noticed the reactions of the people around her. The teenagers who had entered earlier were wide-eyed, leaning forward as if trying to memorize every movement. The young couple near the piano held hands, their expressions soft with admiration. Even the regular customers who had seen her many times but never really noticed her were captivated by the display of talent they had never expected. The wealthy man's smile widened, a look of genuine amazement on his face. He could see that this moment was more than just music. It was a revelation. She played piece after piece, each one different in mood and style, yet all equally expressive. Some were gentle and reflective, others bold and commanding. Her fingers danced across the keys, moving with a fluidity that spoke of years of practice and natural talent. The room seemed to vibrate with the sound, the energy of the music touching everyone present. It was as if the piano had become a bridge between her past and the present, connecting her inner world with the outside in a way that words could never achieve. Her mind wandered briefly to the sacrifices she had made. The long nights she had spent practicing while others were out enjoying life, the opportunities she had set aside to take care of responsibilities, and the dreams she had quietly tucked away. All of it had led to this moment, a culmination of effort, longing, and resilience. And now, in front of strangers and a man who recognized her talent, she was finally allowed to shine. The wealthy man watched carefully, noting the precision and passion in her playing. He could see not just skill, but heart. This was someone who had dedicated herself to her craft, who had poured years of love and discipline into every note. He felt a deep respect for her, and a desire to help her realize the potential he knew she possessed. The music was more than entertainment. It was proof of a life rich in talent and determination. Waiting for the right opportunity to be acknowledged, as she continued, she felt a sense of liberation. The years of hiding her talent, of playing only for herself in quiet moments, seemed to lift from her shoulders. She was no longer constrained by fear or doubt. Each note was a declaration, a statement of who she was and what she could do. The piano, old and worn, responded to her touch as if it had been waiting for her all along. The melody filled the room, wrapping around every listener, leaving a lasting impression by the time she finished. The restaurant remained silent for a brief moment, as if no one wanted to break the spell. Then, slowly, applause began to ripple through the space. It started quietly, polite, and tentative, but grew into heartfelt appreciation. Customers who had never noticed her before looked at her differently now, their eyes filled with respect and admiration. The teenagers clapped enthusiastically, and the couple near the piano smiled, touched by the performance. The wealthy man's applause was measured but genuine, its expression one of awe and approval. She sat back, her hands resting lightly on her lap, a mixture of exhaustion and exhilaration washing over her. She could feel her heart pounding, her chest filled with a warmth she had not experienced in years. The music had reconnected her with a part of herself that had been dormant, and the recognition from those around her added a new dimension to the experience. She realized that her talent, long hidden and forgotten, was not gone. It was alive, vibrant, waiting for the right moment to be acknowledged. The wealthy man approached her carefully, his expression kind and respectful. "That was incredible," he said softly. "I have rarely seen someone play with such skill and emotion. You have a gift, and it deserves to be shared." She nodded quietly, feeling a mix of gratitude and humility. She had never played for praise or recognition, but hearing it now was profoundly moving. The acknowledgement of her skill, her years of dedication, her passion, made the long hours of sacrifice feel worthwhile. Other customers approached her, offering words of admiration and surprise. Some asked how long she had been playing, while others simply expressed amazement at the beauty of the music. She smiled politely, answering softly, careful not to let the attention overwhelm her. The piano had been her secret world, a place she had retreated to for comfort and expression, and now it had become a bridge, connecting her to others in a way she had never imagined. As she returned to her work, she felt a subtle change in the atmosphere of the restaurant. The customers seemed to see her differently, with newfound respect and curiosity. Even the regulars, who had known her for years, treated her with a quiet reverence, acknowledging the hidden depth behind her calm exterior. The piano in the corner, once just background decoration, had become a symbol of possibility and hope, a reminder that talent and passion could never truly be silenced. Throughout the rest of the evening, she continued her duties, serving meals and attending to customers. But the memory of the performance lingered. Every time she glanced at the piano, she felt a spark of excitement and anticipation, a reminder of what she was capable of. The wealthy man remained in the restaurant, quietly observing, his presence a comforting reminder that her talent had been seen and appreciated. And though she did not yet know what opportunities might arise from this moment, she sensed that her life, in small but meaningful ways, had begun to shift toward something new and promising. After the performance, the restaurant felt different, almost transformed. The ordinary hum of conversation seemed more attentive, and the customers who had been there all evening now looked at her with something new in their eyes, a mixture of admiration, curiosity, and respect. She returned to her duties quietly, clearing tables and refilling drinks. But her mind was elsewhere, still echoing with the music she had just played. Each note lingered, reminding her of the hours, days, and years she had spent learning, practicing, and dreaming. The wealthy man who had encouraged her remained at his table, watching her as she moved with her usual quiet grace. He had a keen eye for talent, and he could see more than just the performance. He could see the story behind it, the years of dedication, the sacrifices made, the dreams deferred. There was something compelling about the way she carried herself, a quiet strength that came from resilience and determination. He wanted to know more, to understand the person behind the music, to see the depth of her journey. When the restaurant had a brief lull, he stood and approached her table. She looked up, slightly startled, and gave him a polite nod. "May I talk to you for a moment?" he asked gently. She hesitated, but there was a sincerity in his tone that made her nod. They moved to a quieter corner of the restaurant, away from the remaining customers. The man's gaze was kind but intent, as if he were trying to read the story written in the lines of her face, in the way she held herself, and in the careful movements of her hands. "Your playing tonight was extraordinary," he began. "It is clear that you have trained extensively. Can you tell me why you are not performing anywhere?" She looked down, her fingers fidgeting with the edge of her apron. The question felt personal, almost too revealing. She had kept this part of her life hidden for so long, protecting it from disappointment and judgment. Yet something about his demeanor encouraged honesty. She took a deep breath and began to speak, her voice soft but steady. She explained that she had loved music since childhood. She had been passionate about the piano, dedicating countless hours to practice. Her parents had supported her as best they could, despite financial struggles, and she had dreamed of performing on stage one day. But life had other plans. She had needed to work to support herself and her family. Opportunities were limited, and she had been forced to put her dreams aside. She spoke of the longing, the regret, and the persistent connection she felt to music. Even in the quiet moments when no one was watching, the man listened intently, nodding occasionally. He did not interrupt, allowing her to share the story she had kept mostly to herself. When she finished, she felt a mix of relief and vulnerability. It was rare to find someone who would listen without judgment, who would understand that talent and dedication could coexist with sacrifice and hardship. His expression reflected a deep appreciation for her journey, for the strength it took to keep moving forward despite challenges. "I can see that you have immense talent," he said after a pause. "Not just skill, but heart. You have kept this gift alive, despite the obstacles. That is rare. It is also valuable. Have you ever considered what you might do if given the opportunity?" She shook her head slowly. The thought had crossed her mind in fleeting moments of hope, but fear and practicality had always held her back. She had not dared to imagine that someone could recognize her ability and offer a path forward. The possibility felt both thrilling and intimidating. He leaned closer, lowering his voice slightly. "I am involved with people who work in the music world. I see potential, and I believe you could achieve more than you realize. This is not about charity. It is about recognizing talent and helping it grow. I want to help you find a way to share your gift with the world." She looked at him, her eyes wide with a mixture of surprise and cautious hope. She had not expected this. The idea that someone could see her skill and take it seriously, that someone could offer guidance or opportunity, felt almost unreal. Other customers, sensing the private conversation, gave them space but glanced over curiously. Some whispered to each other, speculating on the unusual interaction. She felt the weight of attention once again, but it was different this time. It was not about performance or approval from strangers. It was about the possibility of change, the chance to reclaim a part of herself that had long been dormant. Her heart raced with the thought of what could happen if she allowed herself to embrace the opportunity. The man continued to speak, sharing anecdotes of musicians he had worked with and the paths they had taken to success. He spoke not of fame or wealth, but of fulfillment, growth, and the satisfaction of pursuing one's passion. His words were practical, yet encouraging, painting a picture of a future that had seemed impossible to her for so long. She listened, absorbing every detail, imagining what it might be like to step into a world where her music could be appreciated and nurtured. She spoke hesitantly about her fears. The fear of failure, of not being good enough, of stepping into a world that she had left behind. He listened patiently, acknowledging her concerns without diminishing them. "The path will not be easy," he said gently. "But talent like yours does not disappear. It only needs the right circumstances to flourish. You have already proven that by playing tonight. That is just the beginning." His words resonated deeply, planting seeds of hope that she had thought long dead. The conversation turned to practical matters. He suggested small steps, opportunities to test her skills in supportive environments, and ways to reconnect with the music community. He emphasized that he was offering guidance, not pressure, allowing her to consider the possibilities at her own pace. She felt a sense of relief mixed with excitement. For the first time in years, there was a tangible path forward, a way to merge her past passion with her present reality. As the evening continued, she returned to her duties, but her mind was alive with thoughts of potential and opportunity. She found herself smiling more freely, her movements lighter, her interactions with customers infused with a subtle confidence. The piano in the corner, once a silent witness to her hidden talent, now seemed like a companion, encouraging her to imagine the possibilities ahead. The wealthy man finished his meal and prepared to leave. Before he went, he placed a card on the table and spoke softly. "Think about what we discussed. You have something special, and I hope you will consider taking the next step. Your music deserves to be heard." She nodded, clutching the card carefully, feeling the weight of its significance. It was more than contact information. It was a key to a door she had long forgotten existed. After he left, she remained near the piano, running her fingers lightly over the keys. The music from earlier echoed in her mind, blending with the possibilities now presented to her. She realized that her life could change in small but meaningful ways, that the dreams she had set aside might not be out of reach. The evening had shifted something inside her, a quiet determination to explore the potential she had almost abandoned. The restaurant slowly emptied, and she finished her shift, carrying the card with her as a reminder of the encounter. As she stepped out into the cool night air, she felt a mixture of nervousness and anticipation. The path ahead was uncertain, but for the first time in a long while, it seemed filled with possibility. The music, her hidden talent, and the recognition from someone who truly understood her had sparked a new chapter in her life. She walked home slowly, her mind alive with thoughts of what could come next, carrying with her a sense of hope and the quiet strength of a dream that refused to die. The following week, the restaurant carried on as usual, but something had changed. The waitress moved through her duties with a quiet confidence, carrying herself differently even as she served meals, refilled drinks, and cleared tables. The encounter with the wealthy man lingered in her mind like a seed planted in fertile soil. She found herself glancing at the piano more often, feeling the pull of music stronger than ever before. Each note, each memory of playing, seemed to call her forward towards something new. She could not stop thinking about the possibilities he had mentioned. The idea that her talent could be seen, nurtured, and shared was thrilling yet intimidating. She worried about whether she was truly ready, whether she had the skill and courage to step into a new world. But the more she thought about it, the more she realized that she had already taken a significant step by playing in front of an audience. That first performance had been a breakthrough, a moment of reclaiming a part of herself she had long neglected. One afternoon, the man returned to the restaurant. He greeted her warmly, and she felt a rush of nervous excitement. He did not come with a demand or a plan. He came with an offer and patience. "I have been thinking about your talent," he said. "I believe there are opportunities for you to reconnect with the music world. Nothing rushed, nothing forced. Just a chance to explore what you can do." She nodded, listening closely, her heart beating with anticipation. The idea that she could take tentative steps into a world she had left behind felt both scary and invigorating. He explained that he could help her arrange auditions, introduce her to musicians, and provide guidance for her performances. He emphasized that it was not about fame or wealth, but about helping her find a path to express her music fully. The offer was genuine, and the care he showed in presenting it made her trust him. She felt a cautious hope blooming inside her, a quiet belief that her life could take a meaningful turn. Over the next few days, she thought deeply about the opportunity. She reflected on her past, her love for music, and the sacrifices she had made. She remembered the joy of losing herself in melodies, the thrill of mastering complex pieces, and the quiet satisfaction of creating beauty with her hands. These memories reminded her that this chance was not just an opportunity, it was a return to a life she had longed for in silence. When she finally agreed, the man was patient and encouraging. He helped her schedule her first small audition, a chance to perform for a group of local musicians who could provide guidance and feedback. The thought of performing outside the restaurant terrified her, but it also excited her. She realized that the fear she felt was proof of her passion, proof that she cared deeply about her craft. With careful preparation, she found herself practicing every day, rediscovering her skill and confidence. On the day of the audition, she arrived early, her hands slightly trembling as she touched the piano keys. The room was small but professional, filled with musicians who immediately recognized the seriousness in her approach. She took a deep breath and began to play. At first, she was cautious, but as the melody unfolded, her confidence grew. Her fingers moved with the same grace and skill that had captivated the restaurant audience. But now, there was a sense of purpose and determination that came from knowing she was reclaiming a part of her life. The musicians listened intently, impressed by her precision, expression, and the depth of emotion in her performance. When she finished, the room remained silent for a brief moment, and then applause broke out. Their approval was different from what she had experienced at the restaurant. It was professional, informed, and encouraging. They offered constructive feedback, suggestions for improvement, and words of praise that validated her years of hidden dedication. She felt a surge of gratitude and excitement. The path ahead was not easy, but it was real, tangible, and achievable. Over the following weeks, she continued to practice, attend workshops, and meet other musicians. Each day, she felt her confidence grow, her connection to the music deepening. The piano became more than an instrument. It became a bridge to a future she had almost abandoned. She began to see herself not just as a waitress, but as a musician with a voice worth sharing. The support of the wealthy man who continued to encourage and guide her without pressure made the journey feel safe and inspiring. Back at the restaurant, her colleagues and regular customers noticed a subtle change. She carried herself with a quiet pride, a calm energy that suggested she was moving toward something meaningful. When she played on the old piano during slow evenings, she felt a connection to both her past and her future. Customers who had witnessed her first performance now watched with renewed admiration. Sensing that this was more than a talent, it was a calling. The first small public performance she participated in outside the restaurant was a turning point. She played with poise and passion, her fingers dancing across the keys, expressing years of emotion and dedication. The audience responded warmly, their applause filling her with a mixture of joy and relief. She realized that this was what she had been missing, not just the act of playing, but the sharing of her music. The connection with others through sound and emotion. As her reputation slowly grew, opportunities multiplied. Invitations to perform at local events, small gatherings, and workshops began to arrive. Each new opportunity was a chance to refine her skill, to grow as a musician, and to build confidence. She remained humble, remembering the years of struggle and the quiet moments when she had played only for herself. Yet, there was also pride in knowing that her dedication had not gone unnoticed, and that her music could touch others in ways she had never imagined. Through it all, she never forgot the restaurant where it had begun. She continued to work there when possible, not out of necessity, but out of love for the familiar space and the people who had known her quietly all along. The old piano remained a symbol of her journey, a reminder that talent and passion could not be hidden forever. Each time she played, she remembered the night she had first shared her music with an audience, and the way a single moment of courage could change everything. The wealthy man who had first encouraged her continued to watch from a distance, offering guidance and support when needed. He saw her confidence grow, her skills sharpen, and her presence become more commanding. It was clear that she had embraced the opportunity fully, turning it into a path of growth, fulfillment, and expression. The sense of hope that had once been tentative now felt solid, a foundation on which she could continue to build her dreams. One evening, after a long day of performances and practice, she returned to the restaurant. The room was quiet, the familiar hum of conversation blending with the soft glow of the evening light. She approached the piano, her fingers brushing the keys. Feeling the weight of her journey and the possibilities that lay ahead, she began to play softly, the music flowing naturally, effortlessly, and with a depth that reflected all she had experienced. The customers who had stayed late listened quietly, sensing the beauty and emotion in every note. Some had been there from the beginning, and they smiled knowingly, recognizing the transformation that had occurred. Others were new, drawn in by the sound and unaware of the story behind it. Yet, the music spoke for itself, bridging gaps, telling a story of resilience, hope, and the power of following one's passion. As she played, she realized how far she had come. From the quiet waitress who had hidden her talent to the musician reclaiming her life, each step had been a testament to dedication, courage, and the willingness to embrace opportunity. The piano had become a companion, a teacher, and a bridge to her dreams. The future was still uncertain, filled with challenges and growth, but she felt ready. She had discovered that her talent was not just a skill, but a part of her identity, one that could guide her toward a life filled with purpose and fulfillment.